Hello everybody, and welcome to our discussion on instructions and screencasts. We're going to start this a little bit backwards, where I'm going to talk about what the assignment is and when your due dates are up front, so you can kind of have them in mind as I break things down. And then I'll repeat the slide at the end just to remind you when the due dates are and the things that you want to get started on. So first, what are you doing? You're making an instructional screencast, which is basically something that you're going to record on screen, and you're going to explain to the user or the viewer exactly how to do what you're doing. So they're going to be able to visually see what you're doing and then hear the verbal instructions, and that is what makes an instructional screencast. Due dates. The first one is your topic approval, and that is this Friday, which is the 7th. We haven't had anything due on a Friday yet, so this is something to take note of, put it on your calendar, and then you'll have an additional 2 weeks after that before the final screencast is due. And of course, there's going to be lots of helpful content coming in the discussion board and on the announcements, so definitely stay aware of that. And to do the things you want to focus on as soon as you are done with this meeting and the next time that you're going to be working on the class is pick your topic. It has to be related to your major, so keep that in mind. And then download Camtasia, which is the screen recording software that I recommend that you use to create your screencast. It's really easy to use and it has a lot of really cool features. If you have other software that you like and you already know how to make a screencast, then great, you can use that. You're not required to use Camtasia, but for those of you who are new at this or those of you who aren't new at it but want to maybe explore a different software, go ahead and download Camtasia. You'll get a 30-day trial, and you've got a little bit less than 30 days to turn the assignment in, so you can download it at any time. If you have troubles downloading it, just send me an email. Another thing that I'll call your attention to down at the bottom of the screen is that you've given instructions many times yourself. The first thing that comes to mind for me is explaining to a group of friends or my kids how to play a card game. And it's interesting what most of us do when we're asked to explain something that we know how to do. Our brains automatically sort of sort and process the information in a way that's going to allow someone else to understand it. So we are all really well accustomed to and good at organizing steps and thoughts and then giving them in a way that is accessible for someone who's a beginner to be able to complete the task. And that's really what we're doing here, only it's going to be a little bit more challenging than maybe explaining a card game, but it still is the same process, and it's a really good opportunity for you to practice the process of prioritizing and organizing ideas. So some sample instructions. We're not actually going to look through a whole bunch of them or anything, but I just wanted to show you guys that with a quick Google search, I am easily able to find tons of different instructions. So I blew up this particular example because I like how visual it is, the way that there's lots of color, yet it's not distracting. The images are all relevant, and the way that it's organized definitely is very easy to follow with steps 1 through 4 listed on the left margin. There are some changes I might make to this particular design, but overall I think it's a good example of giving concise instructions in a way that's easy to follow. So if you do a Google search, again, just for sample instructions, take a look at maybe like 3 or 4 different types of instructions. So this one was very visual. We could also take a look at something that is not at all visual and just text-based. So I encourage you just to do that to kind of get familiar with the commonalities that you find, because instructions, as we're going to see, typically follow a very conventional pattern in terms of the way that they're organized and presented. Okay, so flipping back over here, let's talk for a second about what screencasts are. This is the technical definition. A screencast is a digital movie that consists partly or wholly of a computer screen and includes audio narration to describe the on-screen action. So simply put, you're making a YouTube video. When we first started doing this unit several years ago, almost nobody in class had ever made any type of video that they were going to then publish on YouTube. More so in the last couple of years, a lot of people already know how to do this. So it's starting to become kind of mixed, about 50-50. So the easiest way to think of it is you're making a YouTube video that contains instructions. So something like cooking, for example, if you wanted to look up how to make pasta, you'll find tons and tons of videos out there that give instructions on how to do that. In our case, the instructions that you're going to give are going to have to be something that occurs on the screen. And if you check out the assignment description, you'll see it gives some examples, like how to create a table in Excel, for example, or you could choose how to use Prezi, which is presentation software. Basically, you're going to choose something that you can capture on screen and narrate verbally. And the only little asterisk is that your topic has to be related to your major in some way. So I want you to be able to use this assignment to do something that's actually relevant and beneficial so that it kind of does double the work. There are 2 example screencasts. I'm not going to pull them up here because usually in these meetings the audio tends to not record, so I found that it's pointless. But I am going to share the links to both of these examples with you guys in the next announcement that comes out. So take a look at them. They're both screencasts that I made. They're not the greatest in the world. They're not the worst either. I definitely open to critiques because I'll be posting a discussion board thread about these 2 videos, and I'm curious to see what you guys think and the types of improvements that you would make. So why are we learning this? Just in case you're thinking, why in the world do I have to make an instructional YouTube video? And why is it part of my writing class? Well, it's part of your writing class because you have to write out those instructions in order to deliver a smooth narration to your video. So the writing component is there, as well as being organized and concise and all the things that we've been learning about. The other reason that it's relevant to your career is because you're going to have to do this, and being able to create like a really polished, organized video that's very helpful for your employer at some point can be an impressive skill. And things like that, especially if you are taking the initiative to develop something helpful for the company and you just say, hey, by the way, I created this, that's going to earn you some points. And these are the types of ideas that can help you work your way up the ladder and into probably what most of us want, a higher level position. So some specific examples. Internally, meaning at your job, you might need to explain a new process like clocking in and out on a new app or something like that. Or if you are someone who's in charge of sales and you're overseeing a variety of employees, maybe you want to create a short video about how to log the sales and receipts within the company software. So either one of those is a good example of how you might use this particular skill. Similarly, explaining new software. If you're on that side of technology and you are part of a team developing new software or new apps or anything like that, you're going to have to explain it, to your internal stakeholders if those are the people being affected. Or this one can kind of go into the external area too, because if you're creating new software, you'll have to explain it to your clients. So that segues really perfectly here. Externally, in customer service, you might be giving new product instructions for something that your company has just released. The how-to is connected to this client request. So this is especially true for people involved in coding and graphic design, really client, like small business to business facing. You may have a client request, hey, this program that you developed for us is great, but my employees are having a hard time figuring out how to use all the features. Can you guys send over a video to guide everybody through it? And you would have to make something very similar to what you're going to make here. The skills that you're going to use in this assignment for the instruction aspect, you're going to make sure that everything is logical, that the organization is very practical, and that your wording is very concise. You also do want to have a conversational tone because you want people to stay engaged. For the screencast, the things that you should focus on are having a clear vocal delivery, so not a whole lot of ums and well and long pauses that are just kind of awkward, and also not racing through, similar to how I think I talk. If you do talk at the rate that I do, you want to try to take a step back and deliver it really slowly. It's going to sound normal to everyone else, even if it feels awkward recording it slowly. Make sure that your mouse movements are smooth. The mouse should not be bouncing around all over the page while you're recording. You want to just keep it in one place until you're moving it with intention to go to a different area of the screen. And make sure that the visual aspect is easy to follow along with. So here are some do's and don'ts for this assignment. For the do's, use chronological verbiage, which is as simple as saying things like, first we're going to do this, next we're going to take this step, and then finally. So all of these types of words, first, next, and finally, and many others, are cues for your viewers that help keep them organized and help them go along with the steps that you're providing. Use highlighting techniques, and I wrote verbal because it's important to use your voice and your pauses in a way that's intentional in order to make sure that your viewers know when you're saying something really important, right? So there was an example. I sort of took a little bit of a dramatic pause, and then when I came back, I was a little bit louder to emphasize the phrase really important, and you want to try to do things like that as well. Use short, simple steps. Keep everything really concise. Use verbs, making sure that you are using action language. And use clear language. There should not be any fluff here, and there shouldn't be a lot of jargon. Don't combine multiple steps. So make sure that each major step that the viewer needs to take is broken out into its own. Sometimes it's okay for a step to have like 2 or 3. So for instance, step 3 might say navigate to the left side of the screen and select home. From that menu, select save. Right? So that's 2 steps kind of combined into one, but they're both really simple. So you have to use your own discretion to figure out, okay, how am I going to put the information together in chunks in order to make it quickly paced, but also not confusing. Don't use a lot of jargon. I already mentioned that. Don't direct readers to return to previous steps. That's very ineffective, especially in a video. If it's written instructions, it's a little bit easier, but we want to avoid that in a screencast. And I mentioned this again, but I'll reiterate, don't go too fast. Keep your audience in mind as you are developing your instructions. So first and foremost, if we think back to like rhetorical thinking, the rhetorical analysis and understanding what the audience and the purpose and the goal of our piece of writing is. So same thing here. Their goal could be to learn a new software program, to carefully fix a problem, to design something for the first time, anything like that. So with those things in mind, you want to ask yourself, how familiar are they with the task? Because that's going to let you know what kind of words you might need to define. It will let you know how to use graphics to aid understanding. And you also will be thinking about what kind of knowledge they need to just start. So if there's some foundational piece of knowledge that someone would need to understand your screencast, you want to make sure you give them that piece of knowledge right up front. So how can you use a screencast to convey instructions? It's not that hard. I feel like this assignment can often seem overwhelming at first, but it's actually one of the more straightforward and simple assignments. So start by thinking of something that you know how to do on your computer. Obviously, that's related to your major as well. And these are just a couple of examples, like editing a photo, navigating a program. So don't limit yourself. I suggest taking a piece of paper and writing down as many ideas as you think of, even the ones you think are terrible. And that gives you a really good pool to start working with when you're thinking about your topic. Okay, one of my final points here, work smarter, not harder. Your topic is super important. I feel like it can make or break your assignment. You want to consider several things when choosing your topic. First, your familiarity or level of expertise, because the more familiar that you are with the topic you choose, the easier this assignment will be. It's also totally fine to pick something you're not that familiar with because you want a challenge or you want to learn, you genuinely want to learn how to do it yourself. And as they say, it's very true, teaching is the best way to learn. So either way is fine. Just understand that the difficulty of the assignment depends on your level of familiarity with the topic. The complexity is something you have to think about. You only have 3 to 5 minutes for this screencast, so it can't be something that would be better suited to a 30-minute video. So really think about how long and how many steps your topic is. Now, if you want to do a topic that you envision as, say, a part 1 of a 5-part series, so you come up with an idea, you realize it's way too big for 3 to 5 minutes, but you can maybe capture or chunk just a beginning part of the idea and make that like part 1, and then go through whatever you can hold in 3 to 5 minutes. I'm usually okay with that. Just make sure that you note it on your topic approval form. Definitely think about your audience, we already covered that, and your interest level. If you pick something, a topic that you think is really cool, you're going to have more fun with the assignment and probably do better on it. If you just pick something because you don't really care about this and you just randomly pick a topic and you're not that into it, it's probably going to be, it's going to feel like a long 3 weeks, because this assignment does stretch on for a little bit and you work with it. You're going to spend some hours on it. So the more you love your topic, the better it will be. Let's wrap up with a couple of guidelines. As I've mentioned a few times, the length for this is 3 to 5 minutes, and that's a very firm guideline. Whatever it is that you choose for your topic, you have to squeeze it within 3 to 5 minutes. For your script and narration, do not attempt to wing your narration as I do when I'm teaching these lessons. That's because I have a different audience and a different purpose than you do in the assignment. So you want to plan out your narration, meaning you're literally going to write out your full 3 to 5 minutes, and you're going to submit that along with your screencast. And there's specific instructions for that within the assignment description. Make sure that you edit your mistakes, because you have the software to do so. It means that you should edit them out. There's just no exception, as Negan would say. No exceptions to this rule. If you are struggling to delete some chunks of your recording, I can definitely help you. We can do a Zoom meeting, we'll screen share. Don't hesitate to ask me for help. One little announcement is that on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, I'm going to do what I'm calling an exclusive Zoom meeting. It's actually optional, so no pressure or anything, and I will record it and place it in the learning materials for everybody who didn't want to come or couldn't come. But what I'm going to cover is how to use Camtasia. So if you're new to video editing, or you're intimidated by it, or you just feel like you want to come and be able to ask questions in live time, feel free to join me. I'll post the link in an announcement earlier that day. And on the screen, you can just see a list of the different topics that I'll cover to give you basically a beginner's lesson on using Camtasia. All right, so as I promised, we're returning to this initial slide. What are you doing? I think it's very clear now. You're making an instructional screencast. Your first due date is your topic approval, which is this Friday the 7th, and then you've got about another 2 weeks to work on the actual screencast. For this particular unit that we're doing on the instructional screencast, you'll have discussion questions in week 1 and week 2, and then there will be no discussion questions in week 3, so you can focus on getting your assignment done. And what do you need to do? Pick your topic and download Camtasia. So that wraps things up for us as far as the instructional screencast goes. If you have any questions, reach out whenever you'd like to via email, and I hope everyone has a great week.